Okay, here I have a AM stereo monitor receiver. This is probably the most over-engineered and no doubt expensive AM radio ever built. Made in Alexandria, Virginia, America by Delta Electronics. An interesting, Shango66 did a video not that long ago that actually had one of these in it. I picked this up for 25 bucks, which I thought those panel meters on the front are worth that. Just these nice big, they would look really good on a block amplifier or something. So I thought I might as well grab it. Obviously, for some reason, it looks like at some stage they've taken out all the AM stereo around the place. I assume the radio stations were still in AM stereo if they had been. So it's like got the Commonwealth asset sticker, and these were maintained by Telecom. I thought there was a Telecom sticker on there somewhere. Oh yeah, on the back. Telecom Australia did all the broadcasting stuff, so Telecom Australia, broadcast test instrument. That's the old phone number, probably 002 208634. That would have been their building down in Sandy Bay, Hobart, I would think. It's wired for 240 volts AC, because I was looking at it thinking, is it which one is it? But someone's even left the plug in here. I wonder why it doesn't come out. What the? Okay, I wonder why someone. I thought, gee, someone's lazy cutting an IEC plug off, but it seems to be jammed in there. So maybe there's a reason for that. Supplied by John S. Innes, or Innes, something like that. Tested 10th of 15, or 15th of October, I guess it is, 86, would have been around the time, maybe it was a year old then or something, and accepted 86, and maybe that was the installation date. I know it came to Australia AM stereo around 1985. So Delta Electronics, manufactured under license from Motorola, because this is a CQAM or CQAM or however you say it. The I don't know what the C is actually even for, but it's quadrature amplitude modulation, I think, from memory. I'll have to look this stuff up again. I do remember reading about this stuff when it first came out in the 80s, but haven't looked at it in a long time. It's got a nice little edge meter here for the pilot by the look of it. Pilot or carrier. Different meter ranges you can set with these switches. And we can monitor the modulation of the left and right channel, or left. I think how it works is we have this left plus right. I bet I forget to set this again. Let's get some focus here. Can I go out more? So you've got left plus right is basically just mono. That's obviously you feed your stereo record or whatever, music, microphone, someone talking, whatever, in and short them together basically. And that's your main AM modulation, which the, what is it, an envelope detector, I think. They detect the sort of envelope of the waveform. And so normal AM, that's all you have. And it goes by the amplitude of that. It basically gets demodulated back to the amplitude of the audio signal that you listen to again, once they strip off all the carrier and all the other RF rubbish basically. And then the other channel is L-R, and somehow they do some sort of phase modulation, because you can't do amplitude modulation without affecting your envelope or whatever that they use to carry the main signal. And that was the whole problem with AM, is any interference and stuff would add to that signal. So when you demodulated it, you'd get interference and stuff as part of the audio and make an audio click or pop or crackle or whatever. Whereas FM, you modulate, I think it's the carrier or whatever, the frequency of it. So that's what swings around. And I guess they could have maybe added frequency modulation to an AM thing, but probably not. I think that would stuff up the whole way it works. So they got this quadrature modulation, or like a phase modulation, something in the signal, and I completely forget how it all works, but somehow they do it like a mathematical thing where you have the left minus R, or the difference signal. Somehow that's fed into the carrier and stuff on top of the original signal. It gets ignored by a normal AM receiver because it's a phase thing, not an envelope thing. So when it's detected in a normal mono radio, there's no sign of it, it doesn't know it exists. But if you've got the correct equipment that can pull out that phase modulation or whatever it is, then of course you can demodulate it and then turn it into another channel of audio. Supposedly, I think the carrier in these, I think it's 20, is it 20 or 25? It should tell you. Oh, the pilot, not the carrier. The pilot tone, I think, is 25 kilohertz or something. I think FM's 19. And I think that in these, I think in FM it's used for the demodulation. I forget exactly how it all works. It's been a long time since I learned all that stuff. But I think in these, all it does is turn on the stereo light. Obviously the FM stereo light is triggered by that, but I think they also use the 19 kilohertz as part of the signal to get the two channels back out, or one of the channels out or something. Whereas these, supposedly they just put a 25 kilohertz, but that gets pulled out and just used to switch a AM stereo either into AM stereo mode or just to switch up a light. I guess it probably would have to switch it into the mode or let the receiver maybe know that it's got a signal, or maybe it just, that's all it does is do the light. So this is a really super expensive unit, but I'm not sure why it's got this aluminium on the back. I assume it's something to do with if you're not in a rack case, because with a rack these front mounts stop it going in any deeper. But it looks like the sort of thing to space it off if you shove it under just a stack of equipment or something without the rack mounts, just to stop it hitting the wall kind of thing and bending up all your cables and stuff. I guess the other thing we should look at is what connections does this thing have? And it's got plenty of them. Well, we've got RF in, of course. It looks like there's an attenuator to go with that. That's actually, is it a switch or a pot? It's chunky, whatever it is. And no idea which direction does what. And we've got unbalanced outputs. So we've got left minus right detector, I detector, don't know what that is, or one detector. Got left plus right, left minus right. So they're just your outputs, I guess. Oh, it looks like the top ones are unbalanced, bottom one's a 600 ohm balanced output. We've got right and left here. Right ground, I wonder if they're actual speaker outputs maybe. Maybe it's got a speaker amp. We've got a pilot tone output. Envelope detector. So it must have something coming out. Not sure what it'd be coming out of there. But something to do with the AM signal, I guess. And then we've got, oh yeah, that's right. I think I did have a quick look online at these things. And they've got little flashes in there to tell you when you're hitting the peaks or something. And you can also externally put them out, and it looks like you've got external meter outputs as well if you want to have like a panel somewhere else, I guess, away from this unit. So if this was in the same, if the transmitter building somewhere near the actual broadcast studios as such, maybe you have this stuff fed into the broadcast studios as well. And yeah, how do we get this? Well, is that a lock-in plug? I don't think they ever made them so they could lock in, did they? Maybe it's melted in or something. I think it's coming. No, it's just tight. Oh god, we've got the old cable cancer stuff, I think, where the plastics go off. And yuck, look at it, it's just green. I think that's the plastic on these plugs, made in Australia, Peaston. There were a lot of them around back then for computers and stuff, that same brand, so maybe they didn't make that out of the best plastic. I've never seen one go like that before. But that has corroded and gone horrible. So it might be a little bit of an effort to get power into this thing, although it should be alright. I think I can always scrape that off a bit. So I guess we might as well have a look inside the thing. Okay, let's see what we got in here. Probably not much exciting. This would have had an exciter to go with it. I think this company put out an exciter, or you could get the Motorola ones or whatever, as part of the broadcast transmitter part of things. And this would be your monitor, because like I say, you had to make sure you stayed on frequency and didn't have over modulation causing spurious signals and stuff. So basically the radio station had to monitor its own output. I don't know whether they just fed this off a tap off the transmitter, or whether they used an actual antenna on this as well. You wouldn't think so when it's so close to the transmitter usually, but who knows. Again, I'm sort of not up on that sort of stuff. Been a long time. I've worked on some two-way radio base stations and stuff, but not the broadcast side of things. And there we go. Nicely built as you'd expect. The good old gold coloured aluminium as a lot of this American equipment from back then had. And yeah, nice little screw, well, what are they, captive nuts basically, stamped into the chassis. All the American mainframe computers and stuff were built like this. Well, I don't know about all of them, but a lot of them. That board's, oh, it's actually out. Someone's disabled this unit by the look of it. So the power supply, maybe it's just been dropped, but I don't think that'd come out by just dropping it. But it's possible someone's done that, tested in 86. A nice power transformer there. Signal Transformer Co. Incorporated. Bayview Avenue, is it? Inwood, New York. 11696, I think, USA. Yeah, these have all got tested stickers. Where do those speaker outputs come from? They come from this, oh no, not from that box. Oh, someone's had a little power board in here, I think. That doesn't necessarily, that looks like an Australian edition, but I could be wrong, so maybe that's the amplifier. Well, it's got op amps and stuff on it. Is that an Arlec transformer? Maybe I'm wrong about that. It is an Arlec transformer. With a couple of 15 volt regulators, so this little end board here I'd say is an Australian edition. Possibly, I mean, this Delta Electronics did exist in Australia. I think they still do actually. I think they're into solar panel stuff now. I did look it up quickly. That says made in USA on it. That's got your MC10131, MC10116. Actually, I think they're, oh, there it is, MC1496. That might be the actual decoder chip. I'm not sure. It'd be one of the, something like that was the Motorola. That's got all more of the IF stages and stuff on it by the look of it. How do these boards, is it something to do with this thing? I've never seen one before. Oh, you just do that, do you? And it comes, oh, look at that. Beautiful. So it's got quite a few chips not actually on there. It looks like a kind of half-made front end type board. This looks like the business end of things, but maybe I'm wrong. And a couple of these old ceramic chips even. RCA CA3045s. They sound like just op amps. I think these 10 series chips, weren't they, like the old early RCL or whatever, early TTL type stuff. We've got some 1596Ls, MC 1596s. I could be wrong about that. A few more CA chips, TLO82. I think that's just an op amp. And an LF347, 347. They might be op amps or something. CA3183. Just says Delta Electronics, made in USA, reference something or other. Almost looks hand soldered to me, but doesn't mean it is. We've got like a bit of coax here, so maybe there's two. We've got two sets of those RCAs. They are the same ones, aren't they? 3045s. Yeah. And it's a 3.6 megahertz crystal by the look of it. Yeah, not sure. A few trim pots and bits and pieces. And there's another massive bunch of stuff there. There's a big switch on that. Yeah, so I haven't seen these edge connectors ever before in my life, I don't think. Ones that you get, they must clamp in so they're loose. I guess we can have a look at this. That stupid bracket on the back. These contacts must tighten up as you, they're like a zero insertion force. Yeah, they do, they pop out. Well, that's a new one on me. I guess I shouldn't put that board in there because now I can't see anything. If you look at the pins in these things, they actually close up. Hopefully the camera picks that up. Maybe I need to zoom in, but yeah, the actual pins in the edge connectors open up to let you pull the board out upwards. So that was probably something used in some professional test gear and stuff, you'd think, but yeah, what a great design. I like that. So again, that's probably why this thing would have cost a fortune, having all that fancy kit in it. Yeah, I don't really remember seeing them in anything. And this board, TLO84s, at least they're all nice sockets. If you wanted to strip this down, there's a lot of TLO84 ICs. They were a good quality quad op amp from memory. TLO82, and then we've got an SG1495. Two of them. Don't ask me what they are. Looks like a stereo board to me in a way. That's a lot of audio processing in it. And then we've got a switch here. Circuit board switch. Doesn't say anything as to what it does. I think there is an instruction or specifications menu online for this thing, but that's it. No service info that I saw, which is not surprising. Not many people would have had a manual for one of these, I would think. This again looks like more audio stuff. That's probably your 600 ohm transformers for that balanced output or whatever. TLO84s, interesting. They're all silver top TLO84s, and those other ones are different Texas Instrument ones. And we've got an MC3302, whatever that is, and a couple of MC1455s. I think they were op amps or something. Seem to remember seeing them everywhere once upon a time. More than 70s gear, I think. But yeah, this thing's probably highly obsolete these days, but what a beautiful bit of equipment. And like I say, just for the panel meters on the front would be worth more than the $25 I paid for it. I might put this one back in, I think. I wonder if we should power this up and see what it does. I better check if there's any sign of how this thing is set up for 120 volts. I assume you can rewire the primary. It looks like it's all soldered on here. It looks like two windings in series. Go back to that socket, and it's actually a Billinglee brand, but look at made in England. Wow, so it's a Billinglee made in England input filter and IC socket. IEC socket, I should say. I'm looking at too many IC sockets. We've got a Meter Master, Thorndale Avenue, Itasca, is it? Illinois 60143, and a phone number, a division of Duco Mun or something Incorporated, and a part number. We've got another Meter Master, or Meter Master Chicago on that one. So beautiful meters. I mean, you can't beat a lot of this American stuff. Beautifully built. Looks like it's actually got gold plated switch banks down there. Absolutely lovely stuff, but imagine what it costs to make it all. Proper building cables. They just don't make stuff like this anymore, and probably a good thing, because I wouldn't want to pay for the price of making these things anymore. But just absolutely lovely equipment. It is like, you know, military spec, mainframe computer kind of build quality. And yeah, some of these what do you call them? I forget what you even call those switches. The little not binary switches, were they? What were they called? I've forgotten now. But you can flick the little thumb wheels around. Just to set what the peak trigger's at, I guess. That one's set to 98. Not much else of value in here. That was your RF input, I think, so maybe there's something. Feels like that should pop off. It's sort of coming. Not sure if I should take it off. I probably won't get it back on again, but anyway, that's the RF input stage. And what is this little board? I can't see anything written on it that makes it worth pulling out. So maybe that was some mod done for these Australian versions. The fact it's got an RLEC transformer, I think they were an Australian brand, so I doubt it came from anywhere else. And it looks like more op amps and stuff on there. And yeah, it goes to those speaker outputs, seemingly. What are those chips? They're not some little... They did make 8-pin amplifier chips. And And I can't really read them, it's very difficult to see anything in there. TLO 82, 82. NE 5534, they're the nice low noise op amps. They're all 5534s, I think. So that board has a bunch of 4 NE 5534s. So whatever they are, unless they are the 600 ohm, maybe they're the 600 ohm outputs. Balance, oh okay, yeah, I'm an idiot. I read it wrong, I think. So we've got unbalanced outputs, which is left or right, and we've got left plus right, so it's mono, or left minus right, so it gives you the signals before the final processing, I guess. And then there, this is your 600 ohm balanced output, probably made so you can stick it over a phone line or something. I would have thought those two transformers, wherever they were something to do with that, but they must be something else. So it looks like someone's had a little mod board in there to... You'd think that would have transformer outputs if it's 600 ohm, or maybe they're not really 600 ohm anymore, but you'd think they'd change the label if they weren't. But it could be that they're made to go over phone lines or somewhere else in the building. Yeah, I'm not sure when they actually discontinued AM stereo broadcasting. Might have been when they pulled the old tower down, which I can't even remember when that was, early 2000s or something. The old Mount Wellington transmitter site got dismantled and the old tower dropped. I've got the radiation warning label or little sign off it somewhere, because I saw it all in the scrap bins around the scrap metal yard where I used to buy a bit of electronic stuff, so I pinched, as a souvenir, I pinched a little radiation warning sign off it. And so another guy I know, I telling him about it, and I think his brother bought a lot of the old angle iron, even though it was a bit bent, and used it as a farm shed. But it was some beautiful big, very well galvanised angle iron, but they just tipped the whole tower over. Probably cut the legs out on one side or blew them out or whatever, and tipped it on its side and just smashed it into the ground. But I wonder whether this was decommissioned at that time. June 18, 1984, that meter was made. So yeah, quite a nice bit of gear. I guess I should scrape up the connections and see if we can get anything out of this thing. I was actually hoping I'd be able to receive something on it, but as in AM stereo, not just anything, but I reckon we should be able to pick up radio stations on this. Although the next question is, how do we tune it? If it's got an RF input, get rid of some of that green muck. So RF input, RF attenuator, that comes out of this thing and goes into that great big bundle of cables. Carrier set. Don't know, is that something to do with it? Is that like a tuning? It's only a potentiometer, but that could go to a varactor tuner of some sort or something. I wonder if, oh, is that what this is? Yeah, I didn't think of that. Where's the there's some IF type cans in there, but is there an RF front end in this thing? What goes into this board? It does have a shielded cable come into it, but again, it just goes into all the back plane of wiring. Dunno. Let's see if any smoke comes out of it. Hopefully that connection doesn't crackle and carry on, but it should only be fairly low current, so not real good. I don't even like putting a plug on that stuff in case it ends up full of it. Well, oh, better turn my bench on. Ooh, we have humming, meters moving a bit. Let's look at that noise. Well, not much to see, not so much as a light on the front. That moves that pilot carrier meter slightly. So I guess we can hook into the audio outputs and see if there's any sign of life Yep, they're all BNC connectors, even for audio, which probably makes sense, but also makes life difficult. I've got a weird noise coming out of one channel. So whether this thing even works. And it changes when I flick the pilot switch. That's just meter range. Modulation plus or minus, although the button doesn't seem to click back out on that one. So I think we've got a stuck button. Yeah, that's annoying. Well, the American switches haven't held up, but maybe that's just a bit of dust or something in there. So I thought it might be a fancy AM radio, but it probably doesn't actually pick up AM on its own anyway. Transformer's very hummy. So maybe that's why someone disconnected the power board or something. No, so I have no idea. It's a pretty cool bit of kit. And like I say, I'm really tempted to, if it's no good for anything, I might pinch these meters off it because they would look awesome on a block amplifier, something like that ETI one I got, although I'd have to fit it in another case because that's got a heatsink on the front. But I was thinking a couple of nice VU meters. I mean, maybe this thing itself could have a lot of this, or even make a new front panel for it, I guess, with just the meters on it or something, and a power switch or whatever, or maybe just the meters, paint it black, and maybe even cut the case down a bit or something. You could make a really nice sort of audio unit out of this, because I don't think it's going to have a lot of value to anyone. I couldn't even find one online anywhere for sale just to see if anyone thinks they're worth anything. Though someone on eBay will think any piece of junk is worth a fortune. So it's not really a good indicator, but gives an idea whether they think there is some value, or maybe they've sold for something before. But yeah, beautiful bit of kit. I love those edge connectors. They're a nice fancy bit of equipment. Something I don't think I've ever actually seen in something before, or if I did, I really didn't take much notice of it. I do get a feeling that I've seen these little lever bits on things before, but whether it's something I ever pulled to bits, used to see a lot of old equipment around the scrap metal, this kind of stuff, and you just have a quick look and see if there's any useful parts in it. A lot of it just got shipped off to China, or maybe the boards would get pulled out, and the whole rest of it would just go in the irony alley bin to be melted down. Unfortunately, a lot of it went that way. I reckon a lot of these things, when they were decommissioned, would have gone that way. I'm very surprised this one survived. Maybe someone at Telecom or something decided to keep it rather than bin it, and it's probably sat in their shed ever since until they got sick of it and donated it to the tip shop. But yeah, they were originally asking $50 for it, which I didn't even see it. I haven't been out there for a while, and saw it for $25. I thought, no, it's stuff, I'm going to buy that just for the meters. And because it's interesting, I was actually hoping it would pick up, the fact that it had an RF input, I was hoping it would pick up AM radio, because I thought it would make the world's craziest AM tuner really, but doesn't look like it does in its current state, or it's faulty, one or the other. So I don't know whether I can find out much more info. There's like no boards missing out of it, there's no room for extra boards. So you'd assume if it had an RF input, you could just shove RF in and somehow, but now that I look at it, I'm like, well, how do you tune it or anything? So it's certainly not going to have the normal sort of tunable detector in it, I take it. Though you may be able to feed something into this. Okay, well, I had a look at the specification sheet on this thing, which is what I should have really done in the first place. And it turns out this needs between a 1 and 10 volt input into that RF input, so a sample of the transmitter output basically, and the related exciter that they made as well, it's got like a 2 volt output, but whether you're really meant to go off that or off the actual output of the transmitter itself is probably the ideal thing. But it does need a very high voltage input, so you're definitely not going to pick up anything from like an antenna or any of that sort of level on this thing. And I was almost thinking for a minute maybe it'd be good to have some, see if I could find something to boost the, like an antenna signal up or something. But then I realised there aren't any actual local stations in AM stereo anyway, so it's really pointless to do anything with this. But I guess I should really get rid of that not correct thing off there, because that's pretty annoying. And see what it actually looks like as it's supposed to be. So let's get rid of that. At least it's proper glass on the front of these things, I think, so it should all come off nicely. Get rid of some telecom text writing all over the thing. And probably should see if that comes off. And if I go and put it on eBay for $5,000, because it's got to be worth that, right? It's such a rare thing. Some of the people saying that I paid even $50 for it. Well, didn't do that screw up right. Even though I only paid half of $50 for it. And yeah, maybe we should get the Commonwealth Government's asset thing off there. But I don't think that matters too much. At least you know it was well looked after if it was a government thing. I mean, they had plenty of taxpayers' money to waste on, particularly the ABC, if that's what this was running by the look of it, or monitoring. So no expenses spared there. Though it looks like someone at Telecom didn't bother fixing the meter. If they're busy just writing over it that it's showing the incorrect reading. Yeah, it looks a bit better. At least the paint doesn't just come off the writing on the front of this, because it's probably again made to military sort of spec or that sort of thing. It's not just some cheapo consumer thing. Yeah, it looks a lot better. It's not a bad looking unit really, just as a bit of display test gear to have lying around. But yeah, depending what I do, I may be tempted to pinch those meters. You could probably get rid of some of these cowl things off here and stuff, but to anyone who didn't know any better, it would look like a pretty good VU meter. You've got your black and red parts. You could probably get rid of that lower scale, both the lower scales, even just leave that red and black part, get rid of those cowl things. And yeah, they would make great audio meters, those two. Maybe you could even have audio clipping indicators or something, just as a bit of a pointless thing really, but just as a cool feature on like a big amplifier or something. But anyway, thanks for watching.